to the episode number 9 of Manasquan and Brielle Locals Only podcast with your hosts Sean Waltman, Casey Terzis, and Mike Mangan for March 9th, 2026. And today, a very special... Wait, this must be a booking error. Very special guest, Brian Burgess. Welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
It's going well, Brian. So what we like to do today, we're going to talk a little bit about youth sports, but we'll do our roundup on our everybody's lives. But since you're their first time here, we would love to know, how did you find Manasquan and Brielle? How did you get here? And tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. How did I find Manasquan and Brielle? I ended up working at Gigi's when I was very, very young.
We were there together.
Yes, we were.
Contemporaneously,
we
yes.
As you know, I was at Gigi's. So I started working there. I worked there for, I think it was literally like 30 years. I think
30 years.
Yeah.
You had a real job there, though.
I did have a real job. Yes. Yeah. That's not a real job, but I ended up coming back to fill in and help out throughout.
No, but I mean, when you were at Gigi's, you actually...
What's the real job?
No,
I don't know.
No, but when you were there, like you had a lot of responsibility. I always remember you were kind of more
at
senior.
Gigi's, yes, I was like the head person of getting yelled at. Like that was my job. Like if something ran out or something, he yelled at me. That was my job.
You know what Sean's job was?
To look pretty.
Yes.
Yeah. Sean was in charge of the arcade, which basically meant the rest of us cousins would go there and Sean would unlock the games and give us about 1,000 free games. It was amazing.
Sorry, Matty R.
Yeah.
But so you were chief and get in charge of the other, but you had to deal with supervising kids too, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but then if you did it for 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. So I did that through college, and then I went out and I got a job, and I'd come back and fill in on the weekends, basically. Every now and then when they needed help. But so I started that. That's how I ended up in Manasquan. It was after the storm in '96. Mm-hmm. Matty R needed some low-paying wage earners to clean out the sand in Gigi's. So that was my first job at Gigi's, a shovel and a bucket, getting sand out of it after that storm. And then I started working in the summer, and I met people, obviously, and ended up getting my first house on Main Street with Beth English.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then I ended up moving above Gigi's, and at some point I met my wife, although I did work with Lisa at Gigi's at some point. Oh. She was not a fan.
A fan of you or Gigi's?
Of me.
Okay.
I was a
that
punk.
Makes sense.
We all remember I was a punk, right? So we met, and then we got married, and we bought a house over on Newark. We renovated that, and then we moved over to Nerumson and renovated that, and here I am.
Wow, awesome. And you're a bit of a staple in the community. People probably see you a lot of different places, whether you're biking around with the kids or youth sports. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Never with shoes.
But never with shoes.
That is what you're most known for in the town.
Absolutely.
So where were you living first when you first started? Where'd you grow up?
I moved down to Howell when I was like 6.
Okay.
6 or 7 years old. So I lived in the Ramtown section of Howell, right between Wall and Brick.
Okay. All right, so you're pretty close. And then, like most of us, kind of fell in love with the area,
I fell in love with Lisa.
Great answer.
I would be in Florida if it wasn't for Lisa.
And hence the no shoes, right?
Yes. Well, Lisa grew up here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she grew up here.
Well, cool, Brian. So look forward to learning more about that throughout the day, but great background. And yeah, there's pictures somewhere in GD's, I think, of you still, up in the counter with those awesome shirts that we had, the green and the blue. And
I still have one.
Oh, I still have one too?
Yeah.
It's a classic. All right, so it's only been a week, actually, since our last podcast, and we're going to get this one out on, actually a little bit less than a week. We're recording this on Friday for a Monday release to try to stay on schedule. Mike, I saw you this morning with the Republican, and you kind of led on to this a little bit last week, but you were on social media with the Republican. What was that all about?
Yeah, that was fun. Paul Kanitra is our assemblyman. He's in the 10th Legislative District. He was the mayor of Point prior. He's been in the assembly, I think, only a year and a half.
He was a mayor during
COVID,
years. Right? He was a mayor during.
Yeah, he was. And because I remember when the whale washed up on the beach, he was the mayor because he came across and he asked if he could
borrow dynamite.
I don't mind telling the story. He's like, no, he did. He's like, because there was a bunch of press there, and he came over. He says, "Mayor, do you mind if?" Or I wasn't the mayor at the time. He's like, "Do you mind if I use your beach for a press conference?" And I was like, "Go for it." And we exchanged numbers then, and actually just stayed in touch. So, as this base flood elevation thing is heated up, we've stayed in touch. And even though the Democrats are in the majority in the legislature, there's a role for people like Paul to be a voice, and people for a role for us to team up. And I think there's power in the fact that, first of all, everybody is so sick of partisan politics. Everybody's just so sick of it. And let's be honest. I just kind of hit it off personally with Paul, and vice versa. We talk, we text. I don't know exactly how old he is, but we're like roughly the same age. He's got a young kid, so like related on a lot of those levels. And we definitely identify with how ridiculous this policy is. So last night, I'll tell you how this happened. He texted me a video of him in front of a house doing roughly a story of like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And he goes, what do you think of this? And I wrote back, it's great, but why don't you come here and let's do it together? And he was like, let's do it tomorrow morning. So we did it this morning. We found the house. It was actually my mom's old house. Yeah. And we put out a little social media video just to get some attention to the base flood issue. So.
Yeah, just a real recap, because people may just be tuning in for the first time. What's going on with this REAL policy and overreach, DEP and everything?
Yeah, super short. A DEP put in a rule, they call it, which is basically like a rule is like a law, essentially, but DEP gets to do it without the legislature, that says that everything's got to go up 4 feet. Everything that's in the flood zone, and it expands the flood zone 4 feet in elevation. So in Manasquan, I don't know Brielle's numbers, but Manasquan, it's 500 additional homes that would be in the flood zone, all the way up into and including Manasquan Borough Hall. We use that example as one of like kind of pointing out the ridiculousness of this policy, is the fact that if this passed and we did substantial improvements to Manasquan Borough Hall, we'd have to raise it. Yeah. So it's just a ridiculous policy. But I said this last time, I will say it again in case he ever hears this. I really appreciate the new commissioner. I've been working with him. As a matter of fact, right before I came here, I sent an email to him along with the mayor of Spring Lake, updating him on new information. Kanitra, same thing, and Senator Gopal, who's a Democrat. So this is a completely bipartisan effort. I got to lead. Paul put together this thing this week with 14 mayors of Monmouth and Ocean County. Got them all on the same page, passing resolutions, doing letters. So it's a full court press against this thing, and I'm feeling good about it.
We mentioned it at one time. A lot of this stems from, I think, a Rutgers study on sea level rise. My former roommate, Matt Campo, was still open invite Matt, come on the show. I know there's things you can't talk about, so I understand that. But we'd love to have you, explain the study side of things. I think I called it junk science the last time, which I got a nasty text about. Not a nasty text. He said, hey, did you have to call my work garbage? I'm sorry, Matt. So it seems like it's a flawed thing, and it's definitely going to have real affordability issues for everybody that's impacted there. Any reason you think that Murphy was pushing that so hard? What was the goal?
I'll give my opinion, and this is nothing more than one person's opinion, is I think he was running for president and thinking about what he could do to check off a list, and I think that's how we got offshore wind, and I think that's how we got this, is he wanted to be the most progressive governor in the country so he could win a Democratic primary. I mean, because I really can't think of any other reason. There's just no reason to do this otherwise.
Wow.
So I have a question. Is this also the rivers?
Oh, yeah. Rivers, lakes, any of the waterfront properties.
Your house shows up on it?
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's the argument we made, Brian, was like part of the argument I just reminded the commissioner of before I came here was you're devaluing the properties that pay the most property taxes to these local government units like Manasquan, like Brielle. And I love, people love to paint this in Trenton as like a problem of the affluent. But the reality is, in a state that's based on property taxes, those properties that are valued higher contribute dollar for dollar a significant amount of the tax base. And so if you devalue that, it's not like you need less, police officers or smaller schools exactly. You're just going to have less revenue to pay for them. So someone's got to absorb that cost. So there is a cost to this. And some of it's long term, but there is a cost to it.
I mean, for my house, it really doesn't even make sense. So for anyone that knows, doesn't know, I live on Manitou Road over near the water tower, and I have the world's smallest stream running behind my house, and my house was listed on this map.
Yeah, it's called Judas Creek.
Yeah, and Judas Creek runs down Agnes as well. So,
right. It's bigger in areas. Behind my house, it's a trickle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not in the flood zone. Every year, I get the FEMA flood insurance, and it's up to like $870 or something like that this year. And I'm like, I've had this house for 15 years. It didn't have any water during Sandy, but do I cancel it? And I was consulting Gemini, and there's like, well, if you cancel it now with this real policy coming into effect, you might not be able to get back in. And now FEMA's like starting at like $2,500. So like, it's just like ransom that I'm paying. And we're not in the flood zone, but that could change it.
One of the best examples was provided by Jen Naughton, the mayor of Spring Lake. Everyone knows the business district in Spring Lake around here. Mm-hmm. It didn't flood during Sandy.
Yeah.
it's all in the inundation zone under these new maps. And so, in addition to the homeowner impact, you have a real impact to places like the downtown there, where now these businesses, again, if they want to make any major renovation, they got to raise their building. And then that's next to 2 buildings that aren't raised. How do you make that work? How do you get entrance in and out? ADA accessibility. Like, it's a nightmare. So, I'll say this, though. As I sit here today, the full court press is on. It's bipartisan. It involves a legislature and a press against DEP. I never want to be overconfident, but we're looking pretty good right now.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
Anything else in your last week?
That was a huge part of it, and then really good work stuff. I'm expanding my company south, and finally kind of closed on the deal. Got an SBA loan to buy this other company, and that does what I do down in Virginia, Maryland, and DC. And I was advised by my bank, and I say this because I think there are people out there who can relate to this. I didn't know this. They're like, well, you can go the traditional loan route or you can go the SBA route. The SBA route, there's no down payment, and the interest rates are really favorable, and the term is longer. So it's like just a much better loan. But the paperwork is a nightmare, and it could take forever. And I was like, wow, I mean, what's forever? It was like 8 months from start to finish. And turns out, as I've been talking to people in these 8 months, other business owners are like, no, it does take that long, but the terms are worth it. So I finally closed on that this week.
Congratulations. Does that mean more travel for you?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Luckily, the world today, we can monitor everything. We already do up through Maine in our territory, so we're used to operating remotely. That's why this was such a natural fit for me to do, because it's actually closer than a lot of the places we're going now. So we're still going to operate everything out of the home office.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Casey, how about you?
I'm actually pretty excited today for several reasons. The first being, this is the first day since spring break, or since winter break, that I actually feel good.
Oh, nice.
I started getting sick after our trip to Aquatopia, which is a giant petri dish, right? I started feeling not so great on Tuesday, and by Thursday, I was done with work, and I was pretty sure I had COVID. And now it's been like over 2 weeks, and today I woke up, and today's the first day. Like, nice. I actually feel good.
Were you able to work out throughout the time? Or,
no, I didn't work out. I worked out once. Yeah. I'm also dealing with a high ankle sprain. But I went this morning and felt pretty good. I'm also excited to have Brian on here because today's topic will be sports, and I can actually contribute. I don't know much about politics, but I do love sports. But, Sean, you actually have some really exciting news.
I do. Yeah. We found out yesterday, I mentioned it, we were talking about high schools and everything like that. And I found out yesterday that Colin got accepted to High Tech High. So he is going to go to one of the amazing vocational school district, career academies. Really, really proud of him. If folks aren't familiar, this is something you kind of have to start looking into 7th grade. Mike, you did it through MAST, and you've talked about that. In 7th grade, the criteria is the average of your entire 7th grade year grades, and there's a point system assigned based on the actual score, not the letter. And so that's 15 points. Then there's the first, we do trimesters, or the first quarter, if your school district does quarter, first marking period grades for 8th grade, and that's another 15 points. 7th grade really kind of had to start bearing down and being like, dude, I think you have the aptitude for this. You're killing it in math, especially, what do you want to do? And his grandfather is an engineer. My dad was a scientist. Obviously I do a lot in tech myself, even though technically I'm a geographer by trade. But obviously computer science in there. And so we went through all the info sessions, which you have to understand, like, it's amazing that we have these, and we talked a little bit about the access that we have to the different high schools in this area, whether between private schools, but these are public schools in the vocational district, which traditionally has been trades, which are great, and I'm glad that we have those as well. But these are, applied. So you've got biotech, you've got MAST for marine science, which is, he wasn't interested in that largely because of the 45-minute plus, bus ride. This High Tech is the engineering school that's about 20 minutes away at Brookdale and Lincroft. Then you've got communications and Wall. You've got biotech, which Sharon Sharon Bryant is the principal of out in Freehold. And then you've got there's a criminal justice one. I'm not sure where that is. And then the Allied Health, which is tied to the hospital, I believe, in Neptune. Yep. So really wide range of capabilities there. But we went to the info session. Colin, he was blown away. He was like, first of all, he was just like, I feel like these kids are interested in kind of the stuff that I'm interested in. And it's not all about sports. Ironic that we're talking about sports today, But not every kid's a sports kid. He likes sports, loves watching them, loves playing them, but it's not his life, and he's interested in scientific pursuits and stuff like that. And so they were cutting worms and looking at the microscope and like doing all this biology stuff. And he's like, this place is cool. And then we go into the CAD lab and he's playing on the computers and he's exploding models and putting them back together. And he just really, I think it's going to be a great fit for him. It's going to be intense. It's going to be a big step up, right?
Can I give a plug for these schools real quick? Because you're absolutely right. They're run by the county. So for people who don't know, they're run by the county. They're incredibly well funded. So this is actually through your property taxes as well, your county taxes. But they really spare no expense with these schools. And to your point, on the vocational side too, which I don't know the names of, but they have fantastic vocational schools. Yeah, unbelievable. But what you're talking about, I mean, when I went to Mass, we had a partnership with NOAA, right? The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, I think, whatever. We had, like high level tanks and, research rooms. And we had a 65-foot research vessel that we go out and actually trawl and do things. So like the applied, and that's like what you're talking about, the labs that they have at high tech, this stuff is state of the art. And it is hard. But I'll say this, when you graduate, when you do it, if your transcript on the back, I'm sure they still do it. The transcript on the back that goes to all your colleges says all classes taught at an honors level. With like whole bunches of seals and stuff around it. It's like one of the most impressive things that you can send to a college. So congratulations. That's awesome.
I just want to bring up like the elephant in the room. This is a locals only podcast, and the two hosts that have 8th graders have 2 kids that are not going to Manasquan High School. I just want to say, I personally would have been just as happy if Finn
we said
decided,
that last time,
decided to go to Manasquan High School. We just left it up to them, and this is what they decided.
No, but I think that's what we talked about. It's amazing to be in an area where you have these choices, and where Manasquan is still an amazing choice also. So, like, I just think we're really lucky to have all this.
Brian, you have an 8th grader. Do you know what Bennett's doing?
Not certain yet, but he might go to Manasquan. So he's currently homeschooled, and he's being lured in by the sports in high school. So
because you can't. It's up to the district if they can allow homeschooled kids to play sports.
So
or
in
not,
Manasquan,
right?
if you're homeschooled, you can't play sports.
Okay.
So
Mike, you talked about how like if so for Colin, if he wanted to play, they will get him home in time, to be able to play whatever sport he wants to play. I was gonna say the final piece was the test. So that's 30 points. The next 70 points is this admission exam, and we looked at like a prep service. There's a great place called Foley Prep. We went and did a test, and it went terribly. Like it was just we did it after flag football one day. Yes, Brian, you can have as many beers as you want. Oh no, I'm good, thank you. We went after flag football one day, and it was just not the right time for Colin to try to take a test. But I looked at the material, and it's basically like a PSAT level test. And so we did some training on it and stuff like that, kind of at his own pace. And then January 24th, every kid goes to the school that they choose. You can only apply to go to one school. The admission is really kind of odd. Like each sending district gets one seat for each academy. So they distribute that across the county. So you have to be the top one in your sending district, plus you have to get at least a 75. So he had like 28.5 points going into it from the grades. So he needed to get I'm not great at math. He is. You tell me right on the spot. He needed like 68 or something. I don't know, something like that. And he crushed it. I mean, he's in honors geometry right now. And he just absolutely crushed the math side of things. I think he got like 3 questions wrong. And he was like, that was all last year's stuff. And so the other kids that are going into that school, if they haven't done geometry, they have to go to summer school for geometry because you're going into algebra 2 when you enter. So.
And that kid per district thing is believe it or not, is an anti-corruption measure. It makes sure that letters of recommendation don't really matter. Right. You still need.
Yeah, there's no letter anymore.
They still need. Yeah, right. They never did. And back then, so I was actually one of the rare, and everybody knew it when you went there. I was one of the rare second kids per district because they had a little bit of opening after, or some kids dropped out or whatever. So I didn't get accepted until August. I got denied at first. Oh, I was, and I had heard through the grapevine that I was number 2, and you hear that, so I was like, yeah, okay, I'm number 2. But then they called in August, like a week before school started, and said we had someone drop out, and you were next on the list. So
wow.
And that's how I got to go.
I find the trickiest part about that whole process is you can only apply to one of the vocational schools. So if you like biotech or high tech, you can't apply to both.
But it's because of that one per district reason. That's why they want to spread that out so that they can accept more kids,
Right.
essentially.
You talk about tax value, so it is significantly less expensive to send for a district. Being from my board of ed seat here, to go to an academy, the tuition is easily half, maybe even like 75% less than Manasquan's tuition. Which is
You
now
mean
like,
the town portion?
I mean, we pay $23,000 now per pupil to send a student, so that comes into our school budget to Manasquan, and so this is not a town portion. This is actually like our school budget. And when you send a kid to an academy, I think they're all in like 10 to 12 or maybe even less.
But that's because it's subsidized by the county.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, the other states where the county is the school district. Yeah,
I'd be curious, Sean, to know what their actual cost per pupil is my point. It's probably higher.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Oh, 100% is.
Probably.
Yes. Yeah. But for us, it's actually a benefit. And to Casey's point, now, rather than sending 5 students out and getting, 5 lower tuitions, you may only get, 2 schools. Like I know a lot of kids applied to communication, only 1 got in.
Yeah.
Right. So it'd be nice if you could stack rank and be like, hey, we all get 5 admissions. And if you don't get into your first choice, you could still go to biotech or whatever it happened to be, but that's not how it works. So anyway, so that was the big thing for us. And then last night we had a wonderful event. The Brielle Education Foundation did a murder mystery up in
Who did it?
at the Breakers. Cheryl Shock did it. Of all. Yes.
Wait, so you had it at the Breakers? How many people? I'm curious how that works out.
Gosh, there was probably 100 or so. Yeah,
And it worked out?
Yeah, it worked out nice. Well, I'll say this: it's hard to do a open bar, a raffle, silent auction, and a murder mystery.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was a little bit of tension because you're paying these people to be actors, and like some of the people are like, I just want to stay at the bar. I don't want to do this thing. So there was a little bit of just like people weren't all into the murder mysteries, and it was like I've done these before. This was like one of the most complicated ones ever. Like there was like 6,000 plot twists and people were just, not super paying attention, but I think we raised a lot of money and yeah, that was a good part about it.
I've been to a lot of disorganized murder mysteries. Really? I mean, unless you're paying and that's the one thing that's going on, it's very easy to get distracted.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And that money goes where?
The Brielle Education Foundation, which is a 501c3. They typically will buy supplemental things for the school, like computers, signage, all those types of things. Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're doing a terrible job talking about sports today.
Yeah,
I was going to say we should at some point probably.
Well, we're 22 minutes in and we haven't talked about sports at all. All right, run a show. Take us away, Mike.
No, well, I think, listen, we're here today and we want to talk about youth sports because it's a huge part of the community. But look, we caught up on what the communities are doing, what we're all doing. But Brian, I mean, we're here. Sports season, some of our seasons are getting underway. We know that youth sports are a huge part of life around here. I mean, a huge part of life. No matter what age you're at, whether you have young kids, older kids, even retired people, in these areas routinely go to sporting events in this town. So, I mean, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what drew you to youth sports in terms of, I know you have kids, but you're just so passionate about not just being there for your kids, but about actually helping out the organizations that you're a part of. You want to talk a little bit about what draws you to that kind of aspect of it?
I can talk about it. I don't know what it really is. So as he said, I coach everything. I've got wrapped into it since my son was 4 years old in Little League and T-ball and soccer, which was not a good experience. But so I don't know. I don't know what it's about. I do know that I like to be organized. So when something isn't organized, I like to volunteer my time. And I'm sure not everybody loves that. So when I get involved,
I think more people like it than you think, actually.
I think more.
When I get involved in stuff, and I'm not saying anything was unorganized, and I've got to be careful. I don't want to alienate anybody at the Little League. They do a fantastic job, right? That's where I'm most involved in, and I love working with these guys. And I got to say, I'll give a plug for the Little League. They are very, very much what youth sports should be. It is all about the experience and just showing up and having fun. It's not, I'm not going to say it's not competitive. And I also want to say that I don't speak for the Little League. So if anybody hears this, I'm not a representative of the Little League at this point. But they make sure everybody's involved, and I love, when they do a draft for the minors and majors, they say that the most perfect draft would lead to every team being 7-7.
Yeah.
Right? Like they don't want that one team that destroys everybody else.
Yeah, let's get some details. How does that draft work?
So they, and just for those people out there, it's probably too late. I think registration ends on Sunday if you're going to air this on Monday, but you can still sign up late. So the draft is you show up, all of the coaches are there, and they make you hit the ball off the tee. They hit you some ground balls. They hit you some fly balls. They have you throw to first. Just basic entry-level baseball things. And then the coaches all grade you. And then when the coaches show up at the draft and they keep it closed door, you're not allowed to coach with another coach. It's one coach and you've got to draft your players. And they'll look at it and they'll all agree who were if there's 4 teams, they'll agree who the top 8 players were. And then for the first 2 rounds, you've got to draft those 8 players. And then they'll agree what the next level of players are. And you got to draft those players. So there's always, actually, I shouldn't say that. Last year, we ended up with a lot of very, very even teams.
Last year was amazing how even the teams were.
And this year in minors, it's like 6 or 8 teams. It's going to be like a lot of teams, right?
Yes. Yeah. So yes, the league itself has been growing, and it's kind of, it's interesting to see. So in the T-ball level last year, we saw a spike of, I think, like 20%. And I was like, I had no idea why. And I did the math, and there's COVID babies now.
Yeah. That 7-7 thing, though, that you were talking about is not common to every other organization.
It's not.
And it's not. And attitude reflects leadership. And so, like, everybody who joins in knows that that's the deal going in. The tone gets set at the top by you and the board members. Like, I know it's not just you, but you're part of it. Because I don't think I've ever been to a draft where I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Where you guys start every meeting by saying, guys, the goal here is to make the teams completely even. And so it makes everybody kind of on the same page. And that's because you guys set that tone. It's amazing. It's awesome.
And every year it's pretty much the same coaches. So all the coaches know each other. And they know who the skilled players are, and a lot of times it's just an age thing, right? So every coach knows what the deal is.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I'll speak to that. It's usually the same coaches. There is definitely a lack of volunteers, although this year I think we've gotten a lot of names thrown in the ring. I don't know what the exact numbers are. But if you're ever hesitant about coaching, I've coached baseball, I've coached basketball, I've coached soccer, I've coached flag football. I know nothing about any of those sports. Other than watching them, I am not a technique guy. I can't teach a kid to hit better. I can't teach them to throw farther. I just kind of show up and hope they have fun. So if you want to volunteer, go ahead and volunteer.
I don't know. You've taught Finn how to pitch.
Right. How many, if do you know how many kids roughly are in the league and how many volunteers? Like, you have a lot of coaches. Do you know roughly how many teams you have? Give some scale of what the operation is there. Do you know?
I think last year we had 500 kids.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
huge numbers.
Huge. And I've been involved since COVID, and every year it's grown. It's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's really nice to see. I am primarily responsible for like second grade and below. And every year I have to go out and kind of, I don't want to say beg, but I've got to ask for coaches to show up. And I've got to say some of my most favorite coaches are the ones who were like, I can't coach. I don't know anything. And I'm like, I need a coach. And they turn out to be awesome. Absolutely awesome coaches. I love it.
It's a wonderful sport for youth sports in general because it's both a team sport and an individual sport. And we're starting to bring statistics into it now, so kids are getting interested in that. But the nice thing about it is at a rec level, everybody gets to go to bat.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we also have rules. I think there's some unique rules in MBLL in terms of like, we have a midfield. We have like two center fields at the younger age. But then there's also the rules about rotating positions.
Yes, they've got to play 2 innings in the infield. They've got to play 2 innings in the outfield.
No matter if you're the all-star or you're
it's great. There are some caveats to that. Like if you're pitching, you don't have to. If you're going to pitch 6 innings, you don't have to go out in the outfield. But
then there's pitching rules too. How many pitches
you can throw? Yeah, that's little league set.
And what's amazing is the buy-in that you guys have across the board from fathers, especially people who are serious about the sport, that they all understand the purpose of these rules. That they're there to have the game, keep the game fun. I say that to my kids whenever they're playing in the backyard. My older ones, I teach them the phrase, like, if it's not fair, it's not fun. I'm like, guys, everybody, you can win, you can lose, but it's got to be fair. And Little League is like just the best at that.
Yeah. How about on the umpires? Like, because it's always the same guys doing that as well, right? It's kind of like the same crew.
I think so. Yeah. Well, we pay for the umpires, right? That's the one thing that I think we pay for there.
Yeah.
Is the umpires. And they seem like a good crew,
They're coaching. They're almost cheering for the kids sometimes.
As a coach, I've got to disagree with them. But
hey, Brian, I have a question about the snack stand there because I got a lot of questions about when he went over to Sea-Watch about what the deal future was there with Little League. But that's a revenue source for Little League, right? He pays for that, or no? Or is it a break even kind of thing?
It's not necessarily a revenue source. He pays rent that covers insurance and upkeep of the thing. We just really want somebody who's going to be there. He's responsible to unlock the bathrooms and to make sure that someone can get fries and drinks and stuff like that, and he is coming back.
I saw him at Lenny's and was talking to him on Saturday or Sunday. Nice. Yeah.
I love that guy. He was my neighbor for a while. And
Frank's awesome.
Yeah, Frank. And I would leave for work. And if I left for work at like 6 a.m. and I smelt his smoker, I knew that I was leaving work at 4, so I could be home for dinner.
And there's a lot of philanthropy, I guess you could call it, like the signs to say, Dana Company on it.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, and you do a lot of that work too. You have to do a lot of the fundraising.
Yes. So I am, the two things I do there is work with the little kids and, harass local businesses. And, everybody's willing to. It's just a matter of reminding them. And that's kind of what we're getting into. So if you're out there and you want to donate to the Little League, let me know.
So Bennett and Finn, my son Finn, have aged out, and Colin have aged out of Little League.
No, there's juniors.
Oh, that's right. That's still considered
So
Little League.
there's a 13 and 14-year-old league. And
so they'll be playing on the Warriors for Dan Seitz'
Yes.
coaching. Yeah, okay.
Well, Dan Seitz hasn't been officially elected yet, but, he's the one that volunteered, so it's going to be him.
Yeah. And then Isla will be still in T-ball or pony?
She is farm.
She's farm.
And that's so 5 years ago when I volunteered, the person who had left for the younger generation, they needed somebody. And I was like, I'll step up, and that's been my goal for the last 5 years, was to kind of develop the softball program for my daughter. And I've got to say, last year we had 6 teams, almost as many as the boys in girls softball farm level. It was awesome. And I got to say, I shouldn't be partial, but coaching last year was absolutely fantastic. Boys can be a little crazy,
Really?
but the girls, and I noticed this very early in the season, it was her first year in farm, and it's the first year they go all girls, right? First and second grade. Somebody from the other team would get up and the girls in the field would be cheering for him. And it wasn't even like just their friends. Like they would just be cheering for, whoever was at bat. And it was a really great experience last year. And I'm kind of hoping we can replicate it.
That's cool.
Not to crush too hard on MBLL, but I mean it's a slice of Americana when you look at it. Like it's interesting. I don't think there's a lot. I mean, this area, because probably of the Toms River, World Series, that when we were kids, it is a little still baseball crazy, and I don't know that that's the same everywhere. I mean, you had a great experience. You went up to do Cooperstown and everything like that, right?
Yes, we went up to Cooperstown with the Riptide.
Which was a travel.
All 3 of our sons played on that team, and coached by Kevin Shelley. And the funny thing is, whenever we had a home game and other towns would come to play at our field, at our Little League field, they were, first of all, freezing because they didn't know. But they were like,
home field advantage
they
there.
were in awe of how amazing the fields look. Plus, with the river behind,
Nothing
setting.
better than a sunset after you win a game, right?
they were like, we wish we could play every game here.
There's no setting like it. There's nothing like it.
Do we know the origin of? I mean, I know there was a beach there at some point.
Yeah.
How did? Yeah.
Well, I don't know the origin of it, but I know there was because my grandmother used to teach swimming there.
Yeah.
They called it the Kitty Beach, and they used to swim there. And there was my grandmother wasn't the only one, but they used to teach swim lessons there. So it was like the little kids would go there because there was no waves, and you could teach kids how to swim. And so they used that for a long time.
I think they nicknamed it Polio Pond at one.
Well,
point.
then
So we're going way back.
Yeah, listen. I was just trying to understand like the facility, because for folks that everybody in town knows about the Little League field, but folks from afar, and we do have people that download this from all over the world, believe it or not. Probably just spies, or bots. But I look at the map. I'll show you the map. There's like people from Bahrain that are downloading and listening to this. But that could be people traveling. But it is a special spot. But it's a valuable spot too. Like if you look at like the real estate value of that, and how do we preserve that? How do we make sure that doesn't get affordable housing and everything else? Yeah.
Well, the good news is that's protected because it's open space from that kind of stuff. But I look at the preservation question of spots like that a little differently, like we've talked about before. How do you preserve something like Manasquan, Brielle, Little League? You got to keep those facilities up. Like you just brought up the fact that our facilities are pristine, and that's part of what draws anyone who does youth athletics or any athletics knows that the facilities are part of what draw people to play anything. So like when we wanted to build the wrestling program, that was one of the pitches for the field house, was so that there was a place for kids to actually go and wrestle. And sure enough, the program has been built. And it's not explicitly because you built the facility, but you can't have one without the other. So then you look at hockey, you look at skateboarding, and those two really need to be looked at down there because you have an equal opportunity for that kind of special activity for those other two sports that kind of just fell by the wayside. Why? Because of the facilities.
Yeah.
So, MBLL is a good example. 500 kids, that's got to span more than just Manasquan and Brielle, obviously, right? There's other kids playing, and I think these other sports would do the same. And I don't think there's anything bad about having kids that draw from the area into these facilities. I know some of the locals don't love that.
Well, the league is specifically Manasquan and Brielle, right?
Technically, yes. But Little League changed the rules last year. So really anybody up until the age of 7, you can go play wherever you want. And
We got to get a Caribbean pipeline going.
I am not a fan of
By the way,
that.
I should have caveated that. What I was thinking was, I know we have a number of participants, I actually love this, who are only summer or part-time residents, who literally will come down in the beginning. They'll make trips just for practices and games while they're still living up north or in the city until they get here full-time. I think that is so cool.
It is, and actually, Rob McCarthy, that's
what I meant by that.
That was the situation. Colin's first Little League coach, and now like one of my great fishing buddy friends. That was his situation. They were up north, and he came down here, and he was like, "I'm the coach, and I'll be here whenever I need to be here, and running a business in Brooklyn and coming down here." And so, yeah, I love that. People that are seasonal are included as well. Yeah. We talked a little bit last time about the lights, and you had asked a question about the proposition. Brian, what are your thoughts on lights, and what the ROI was really the question?
There is no ROI. We're not a revenue generating, but it does get to the point where you have a lot of 4-inning games because it gets dark.
Yeah, and
there's no fall ball here because it gets dark. So the lights would be fantastic, and without confusing the issue too much, it's really like there is a significant investment to see what the investment would be. They've got to do soil samples and everything, and the soil samples can come back and say, it's a lot of money or it's a lot of money. Right. So we kind of got to gamble to do that first step, which is still a good chunk of change.
And when you say there's a board, right?
There's a board, and I've got to say they are so proactive in protecting the funds. Everything gets reviewed. Mostly everything goes out to bid unless it's small, but they really want to be good stewards of the money, and I think part of that is when I joined the league, they used to have early registration in January where you got a discount, and the sole purpose of that was to keep the lights on and pay insurance. They were living season to season to season because they had the mortgage on that clubhouse.
Okay, and
then they paid off the mortgage, and we've been able to add the batting cages. We've been able to add the sandlot, which is huge because the year before the sandlot, I was like, I have no place to put these kids. We literally had a game going every feasible open time slot in that pony field. And we added the sandlot, and it gave us the ability to push all of the T-ballers over there. So that gave me a full Saturday slate to play the kindergartners and the first and second graders. And it gave the younger kids a place to practice. Coach Joy, who runs our softball program, was the softball coach of the year 2 years ago or whatever, and RKA gave her some money so she got herself a brand new scoreboard over at the softball field. Yeah, so we're using.
Does their remote work better than the one at the baseball field?
Yes, it does. Okay. It absolutely does. As long as you don't drop it on the ground, it's like a big hunking remote you got to plug in. And there's talk of replacing the majors one, but.
I talked to one of the board members about the lights a couple weeks ago, actually just last week, because we had talked about the hockey rink already has lights. So as part of redoing that project, the town would probably be doing lights as well. So the thought is that if we're going to team up, it'd probably save both organizations a lot of money. And you probably wouldn't need as much lighting if you took a little bit broader of a perspective of the park.
Yes.
So we're going to be doing that over the next few months. We're going to look into that.
Brian, I know you volunteer your time to the MBLL and you coach. I know you're a big Yankee fan because you're on a thread with me and Sean and a bunch of other guys, which has not been a very happy thread over the past few years.
Very active.
Did you? Yeah, very active. Did you play growing up?
I played Little League.
Little League.
Yes.
What position?
I unfortunately played second base, but only because my best friend's dad was the coach. So I made the all-star team, and I shouldn't have been there. It scarred me.
And you play softball now for ABL.
I play softball now, yes.
Different team from me, but
yeah. And they're awesome. I love playing there. I usually am in the outfield for that one.
So being a guy that grew up and playing Little League, How do you see sports different now than it was when we were growing up?
All right, so we've only got a little bit of time left, so I can't rant and rave.
No, this is open ended. Mike has an agenda.
So
Casey's got to be at lip sync at 7. We're fine.
Yeah.
You're going to?
Yeah.
All right.
So I will rant and rave, and I say this fully acknowledging that my son is a part of 2 travel teams for baseball and soccer. But, when I was younger, travel was for those really, really good kids. And now travel is for everybody. And, we pay a lot of money to travel out to Trenton, New Jersey to play a team from North Wall. I don't get it, right? And I think it impacts our rec leagues because, some kids are off doing travel and they can't make it. And it kind of, that's the big difference between now and then. Then it was everybody played rec, everybody had a good time. There were really good kids. You really didn't see that separation until you got to high school. And now you have 8-year-old travel teams. You're paying a lot of money. You're spending money in a hotel to go play a team that's 2 towns over from you.
And another problem is you have kids that play travel and, like my son, and will sometimes miss games and practices for rec because they're at a different location with a different team.
Do you guys, can I ask, do you think that it's better this way?
No.
Universally, no. Well,
I think on some level,
I've heard almost every dad I've asked that question to answer the same instant no, and I just left with the question, then why is it happening?
It's pretty insane.
Industry.
What it is every parent wants their kid to be the best, right? Not everybody, but a lot of people think their kids are stars.
Yeah.
And they have these visions that they're going to play in high school and then go on to play in college. And it's honestly, for most of the kids, it's not going to be reality. The kids also have a lot of fun doing it. Like Jack is super pumped for rec, but he's also really excited to play travel. And we're our generation is a lot of parents that just don't say no to their kids. Yeah. So you end up all over the place, right? Like I talked to my buddy Jason Seibert, who has a son that plays hockey, and every other weekend he's in New Hampshire, he's in Hershey, he's in Canada, he's all over the place for like one night. It's absolutely insane. And it drives the parents nuts, but at the same time, we kind of love it.
I hate it.
No, I hate it.
I love
every
it.
aspect of it. And I'll add that there's kind of like an arms race there, right? If your kid doesn't play travel in 6th grade, he's not going to make the high school team, right? And I have no illusions that my son is going to play in the Major League Baseball, right? I think he's very good. He's 1,000 times better than I ever was. Like if we played my 14-year-old self against him, he would run circles around me. But if he doesn't play in these travel leagues and he wants to play in high school, he's not going to be good enough, and not even good enough. By the time you get to high school, all of those high school coaches know who these kids are that are in travel, right? So those are the kids that are going to make the team, the kids that have been playing these travel ball leagues. So it's almost like if you want your kid to have an opportunity to play sports in high school, they've got to play travel now.
That's very true. And what's also tough is we have such a great pool of athletes in this town, in the sending districts, that it's so tough, even if you are really good.
Right.
It is odd. I mean, Manasquan punches way above its weight, right? Like for its small, the pool that it has, it's so annoying. It's almost obnoxious. Like we started an esports club and they won the state championship the first year. Come on. but no, I
by the way, that's part of the Manasquan pride, though. Let's be clear, right?
Totally.
Like we do punch above our weight, and that's what's cool.
Yeah, and we're spending a lot of time talking about like grade school, middle school age kids in sports. We haven't even gotten to high school who just absolutely dominate.
Totally.
Right. Yeah. Well, but I think it's partly because of what Brian just talked about, right? Is like there's this culture of getting them into it when they're young. And football was a great example when we were kids. We talked about this, I think, last time. But like Pop Warner was a force to be reckoned with when we were kids. And that was a constant feeder program to that high school program. And now that's why they built the wrestling program the way they did. And look at it. You're seeing the results at the high school level.
At the same time, like I side with Brian on this because I did not do any of this stuff. My parents did, we were coming down here. We were not staying around in Bridgewater. We weren't doing any of that type of stuff. So I was never going to be able to commit to a sport. Meanwhile, we had a freshman football team. Walked onto that and just had a great time and learned. Then went to JV the next year, and it was a big program. And then the same thing with volleyball. I never played volleyball other than in front of Doc's house. Those are interesting games.
There's also, the other aspect is
and lettered, lettered, right? I mean, that's the point. Is that like what happened to that? Like, why do we have name and likeness deals for 8-year-olds?
I did play travel baseball growing up in All-Stars. I played baseball pretty much all year
But to
round.
Brian's point, that meant you were good.
I was good. I was good at baseball, not to my own horn, but I absolutely love baseball. Yeah. It's one of my favorite things in life. So I was really good, but I had played so much baseball. By the time I hit high school, I was done. I could have played at high school, but
I think there's kids that look. If your kid really likes that and they want to go and you're on the road with them and it's a bonding experience and like that's their thing, great. I just worry about the burnout, right? But I don't really worry about that much because it's not my kid. Like but I do think about it. Like it would burn my kids out. I would know that.
For my grandkids, I really hope there's a backlash. I hope our children grow up and they're like, that was the dumbest thing we did. Like they're gone every night at some practice. They're gone every weekend for some game. They don't just hang out anymore. Yeah. Like there is no downtime for a 14-year-old boy.
There's no catching lightning bugs and looking for whatever.
It is practice.
And I can tell you, having 2 boys on 2 travel teams, I'm never home on the weekends.
No,
or actually during the weeknights because they always have practice. It's nuts. It really is. I'm changing my opinion. I don't like it either.
Persuasive argument. Good job, Brian.
All right, there we go.
Also, another big difference is, did you ever play with like a $300 bat that you struck out with?
Yeah, right? No.
God.
The bat space race itself is nuts, right? Like
$4,000 worth of bats in the dugout, and they've got 4 hits all season.
And they all look like a giant pencil.
Yes, and they look like a pencil. Yes.
I like that they do. The other iconic thing they do is the parade, the Little League parade. I love that.
Yes. So I'm going to make 2 comments about that. One, about all of our good sports teams. One of the things I love about this town is one day we were actually at the Little League field and we were playing a game or whatever, and we heard all these sirens, right? Fire trucks, police cars, ambulances. And somebody stopped and said, "What parade is that?" Like what town are you in? Like, not like, oh no, what's going on? Like, what parade is that?
What state championship
when you see
now?
that posting on Overheard where it's like, is this an emergency or are we celebrating something?
Yeah. Which is a unique thing.
It's
that we
pretty
do,
cool.
I think.
So I do love that.
But that takes a lot of coordination as well, and it's there's a march and all that, and so you're spending a lot of time, I'm imagining, pulling all this all together. Like how much time?
It's not me. It's the board. Okay. There's a core group of like a half a dozen people, and then maybe another half a dozen people that are kind of peripheral. And even you're going to get us the game changer cameras. People
We're trying.
Watch while they're traveling for work.
We got money ready to go. There's a board meeting on Monday tonight, I guess. Talking in podcast time, it's tonight.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can figure that out. And I want that.
One thing we didn't bring up was the fall thing we have going on. I think it's in the fall. Brian Mallon, I think, spearheaded it.
Yes.
Where it's just like, we call it the Sandlock League, where it's just anybody can show up on Friday night, I think it is. And we sit there for hours until the sun goes down and we can't see anymore. It gets dangerous. And like I'll pitch or another coach will pitch, and the kids just have a pickup game.
Yeah, and they expanded that. Brian Mallon started it 2 years ago, and then he did it last year, although he wasn't able to show up a lot because he had a conflict with another youth sport. I think it was football. But it was that, and then Brian Golitz in Brielle brought a bunch of second graders down, and they started playing sandlot football or baseball, and then we had a bunch of first and second grade girls playing sandlot softball all on Friday night. So it was a great night. In the fall it's usually pretty warm out, and you play until it gets dark.
And all the kids know each other. They've been grown up together. They've played sports together. They all cheer each other on. They're just having a blast. And the parents, we all know each other too, so it's like a big party, and then afterwards everyone's hanging out, eating food at Frank's.
There's the main event. There's the game that's going on the baseball or softball field, but then there's all the siblings. They're doing pickup the entire time. What a cool place.
One I think it was cool is everybody. It's a cliche, but it's true. Everybody gets to play too. Anybody who shows up, it doesn't matter if they're the best player or they're not the best player, and everybody finds a spot for them.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Brian, what's your favorite event? This might not make sense for MBLL.
The home run derby.
The home run derby.
Love the home run derby. For the little kids. I can care less about the older kids.
I would say Jack, too. He won it back-to-back years. I swear to God, he still talks about it on like a weekly basis. It was first and second grade. He'll bring his trophies in for show and tell.
That whole week is... So the first night on Monday nights, it's the T-ball teams. So the T-ball teams all come down and they play a game. That they're not home run derby level yet, but they play a game. And, they get a trophy afterwards. They get Italian ice. They have fun. And then, the pony team plays the home run derby. And then the girls' farm has a home run derby the next night. And then the boys' farm, and there's trophies afterwards. And there's ice cream. And I'm going to try and get the the Blue Claws mascot to show up. It's like $200 to rent them,
Oh, that's great.
They'll show
That's
up.
great.
I'm going to try to expand it. Every year we try to add something else on. Like the home run derby was the home run derby. And then we're like, all right, let's get trophies. And then it was like, all right, let's give them Italian ice.
Yeah.
So I love that. It's so much fun. And our biggest problem right now is we've gotten to so many kids, in order to do the T-ball kids. I have poor little 4 and 5 year olds there at 7:30 at night, and people are like, "Hey, my kid's got to go to bed." And I'm like, "We started games at like 5:15. There's just so many of them that and we cut them down T-balls a half hour. The home run derby, we try to put you in hour blocks. I did, we learned, some of the things I learned is you can't have 8 teams show up and have a home run derby for 3 hours. People lose interest, primarily the parents. And then, unfortunately, 2 years ago, I felt so bad. We had the home run derby. Like 3 or 4 kids were tied for first. So you got to wait for the end to play off because we got a little trophy for the winner, right? And they sat there, and some of these kids were there at 5:30, and it's like 8 o'clock at night, and the last kid on the last team gets up. And on the last 2 pitches, the second to last pitch, he tied them, and on the last pitch, he beat them. I'm like, okay, bye.
Oh,
night.
my
I
God.
felt so horrible.
Hey, but Brielle, about the parents, because you mentioned that, and I think that's like one of the things about, regardless of if it's MBLL or anywhere, and I think you guys can speak to this too. I think the uniqueness of our culture around here is that there's not that there's competitiveness, of course there is, but even I've noticed it in the times when either a father or usually a father, but anyone gets mad at something another kid does. Because of the relationship we have, they might say something to someone else. But generally speaking, we don't see those long-lasting kind of rivalries come out. There's a few here and there, but I mean, is that your experience in general, or do you see a lot more arguing behind the scenes than I notice?
I've seen some feuds that have lasted, but for the most part, everybody is civil.
Because I mean, we have literally hundreds of people. To your point, like whether it's rec sports, whether it's Little League, whether it's the other travel leagues, we have all of these parents running around all over the place. And I think that's one of the reasons too, is because your kid could be on a team with one kid in one league and against them in the other. So there's a lot of that mixing.
It's pretty high class. I mean, like you mentioned Hal. Nolan had a game this year, and there was a parent that was just
oh man, some of those other leagues are brutal,
belligerent, and like got thrown out of a 9U Mid Monmouth game.
Yeah.
Like, wow, we don't have that. I don't see that at Little League. I haven't seen
Town's
that.
perfect.
And, and to that
If we
point,
did, that'd be more entertaining.
and to that point, I love the home run derby, but my favorite moment is the championship games for majors and minors.
Yeah.
Because the entire league shows up
it's
to cheer the
crazy.
2 teams on to watch. It's
And it's
un-
And
intense.
people in town.
Yeah,
People not
it's
associated with
intense.
the league.
It's intense, but everybody's just so excited. And yes, there's tears for the losing team, but they get over it pretty quickly. And soon, within 20 minutes, they're running around with their
Not just the
buddies.
championship game, going into like the whole playoffs. And there's some scouting involved every now and then. It's a question. But
So we have baseball season coming up. What other sports? What else we got coming up in terms of sports seasons?
Lacrosse.
Yeah,
lacrosse is huge in this town. I can't speak to it because my kids don't play lacrosse, and I was terrible. But, I mean, this is a big lacrosse town as well.
Oh, absolutely, it is. And Colin did Shark River for many years and really liked that. To your point, though, when you have that going on, it does, in certain classes, draw against baseball. And
Yeah,
then you've got
it
the
does.
kids that are running back and forth, and they're trying to do both, and they're trying to accommodate that. And
Yeah, and it's tough when you're doing a draft and you draft a team that has 5 kids on the same lacrosse team.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, no game tonight.
Talk to me about the scheduling just on that point, because that is crazy. Like, you have got how many different leagues? 5?
Well, leagues, there's
Majors, minors, farm,
T-ball, pony, farm, majors, minors.
5
And
leagues.
that's 5. And then you have girls farm, girls minors, softball minors, softball majors. So 8.
Yeah.
And then juniors would technically be 9. Field space is at a premium. One of the things that I'm going to propose on Monday night is to kind of expand the sand lot a little so we can give the minors and major girls places to practice.
Okay.
Just nothing major. Don't just take a little bit more dirt. So that way it's the size of a majors and minors field, so they have a place to practice,
Oh, I
right?
see.
Because
Yeah.
it's you're not practicing down at those fields during the week because there is always a game.
By the way, that's, Brian made a little bit of a reference about not too much, because when he had to get the Sandlot, we had to kind of shepherd that. Council has to approve any of the expansion because Little League owns the improvements, but the town owns the land.
Yes.
And I talked about this a little bit before, but a lot of my job is trying to translate this stuff from us to other people who are not associated, because there's a whole part of town who just doesn't even know what goes on down there, and we live in this world. But and then it's the people who don't live in this world who ultimately usually have to make these decisions, which is one of the reasons I got involved. But I just have a question about, as you go forward with scheduling, and this is a total nerd question, but do you literally do that yourself? Is it a team of people? I said, do you have software? Because it's so much that you have to manage. How do you literally manage that?
This is a audio medium, but Brian is smirking.
Yeah, because there's got to be some secret to how you do all that.
So,
it's crazy.
Again, I only schedule the younger kids. The scheduling for the girls is Joyce Hell, and boys is James Ahern. And Joy's actually got an added layer because the girls will play other towns. So she has a big meeting with all the other towns because they need help with softball. And even our girls' farm softball team will go play other towns because most of these other towns, even like Howell, they have one girl softball team. They don't really promote the girls. So there's not a whole lot going on there. So we will occasionally, we will exchange our many teams for their field space. So that my scheduling is done through a very, very complicated and probably wrong Excel spreadsheet that I have.
It can't be wrong because you're hitting it out of the park every time.
So it's
No pun intended.
It gets tough because they start the games start at 8 a.m. and they go till 3 o'clock on Saturdays, and you want everybody to play everybody at least once, and you don't want you don't want the same team playing all 8 a.m. games. You don't want the same team playing all 3 p.m. games. I'm pretty confident that none of my bosses will actually hear this. I spend probably more time than I should working on the schedule.
Which makes weather that much.
Oh, yeah.
And then weather. Right. Yeah. And then weather.
The weather, so again, I just add on 2 games. Like the farm team's supposed to play 10. I schedule them 12. So if they get 2 rainouts, I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And then I get someone complaining that they had 2 rainouts, but
that was built in.
Yeah. If they want to play another one, they can. We leave a slot open for makeups. But
is there a reason why we don't more broadly adopt a game changer just from a scoring and stats and everything like that standpoint?
You have volunteers, right?
Yeah.
So the more you force them to do stuff, the less volunteers you're going to have. And we don't have the luxury. It's not like there's a bunch of people lining up to coach where we could say, all right, to coach, you have to, I'll give a good example for farm, I have to go and beg coaches and I say beg, a lot of people are very understanding, but I've got to go and ask for coaches to coach. And they're like, I don't have a whole lot of time. And I'm like, I need a coach. And then they don't have a practice every week. I can't fault them for that. I can't say, hey, you have to have a practice for your team every week because I won't have a coach then.
Yeah.
So for Game Changer, you could say you have to use Game Changer, then we don't have enough coaches.
Got it. You think that's a generational thing, or that's just it's not hard? I mean, we came across it because I got the book one time and I was like, God, there's got to be a new way to do this during COVID, right? And that's why I took your job doing it at the screen.
Yeah, I did it by paper and you took that job over.
See, I love the book. I love it. And then someone introduced me to Game Changer. And the only fault with Game Changer is you're entering it, and I'm, you'd have the same problem with the book, but you have a play where it's ball hit to the third baseman, overthrown to the first baseman, right fielder picks it up, throws it to second base, he throws it home. The catcher runs back to second base, throws it to the third baseman. You're like, how do I score that?
The benefit is people can watch it while they're not at the game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the stats, you can actually help.
No, the people can only watch it when they're not at the game if Sean's team is there.
If Sean's there, that's right. If Sean's there. For now.
Sean goes out of his way to hang up the camera and broadcast it. So we're trying to fix that. And again, we go back to the Little League and how methodical they are with everything. Is
like your shingle.
My shingle experiment. Every time someone says, hey, you should do this, I always point to the shingle on the clubhouse. The clubhouse has been missing a shingle since Bennett started playing. And I'm like, I need someone to go up there and put on that shingle, right? And when I get time to go put on that shingle, I'll do what you are suggesting.
That is great.
Otherwise, until then, you do what you're suggesting because we'll take the volunteer work. We will. Come down.
I'm surprised that you're having trouble finding volunteers, to be honest with you. I always assumed, I guess, because I see the same dads do it every year, that they would just continue doing it.
Well, there are people that will volunteer to coach. And again, it's, there's not an overabundance. Very rarely do we have to decide It does happen. Usually, we'll have 4 teams and there'll be 5 people that are volunteering in the minors and majors and stuff like that. But in the lower levels, when you have 8
it's the
teams,
lower levels.
yeah,
Okay.
You are. When Bennett was in the majors, they were like, we need another coach. And I was like, and everyone looked at me and I was like, good luck. But volunteer is a problem. I know someone who's looking for someone to volunteer to run a town-wide cleanup.
Yeah.
Right? I would love for someone to step up and do that, but it's going to be the same people, right?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the volunteer base as we have in town here is, that volunteer cleanup you're talking about, we have 3 different organizations. You got the MBLL, the Sea Lavender Garden Club, and the Women's Club, all looking to do a town cleanup on the same day. And then, and the Environmental Commission. So they're actually looking at bring that all together and try and do that. And they already do 2 beach sweeps a year. So there's a lot of people who are drawn to that. But the Little League fields, you got a core group of people there who do an unbelievable job getting up early.
And the grounds crew, you can't say enough about them. They're repeatedly, you hear of other towns, when it rains, these people are down there at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and it's like a science. I tried to help out one time, and they're like, what are you doing? You're not allowed to rake a puddle off the field. You have to get out a sponge and soak up that puddle, because if you rake the puddle off, it just makes it worse the next time. These guys are unbelievable. It's the best ground, better than any professional ball club. It's the best ground crew.
You're a turf science team.
Yeah, they are fantastic.
So just to switch gears, I've hinted at it earlier in the podcast, but I just want to touch on the high school sports a little bit because they've been killing it, right?
Yeah.
You had the boys high school basketball team go to its 7th consecutive sectional championship after beating number 1 seeded Wall on Tuesday night in a 42-37 victory. We had a little health scare with Coach. I don't know if it was a heart attack or a heart. I know he has a heart condition. 5 years ago, he missed 3 games because of it, and he fainted or collapsed after or during the handshake. So he's in the hospital. Will miss tonight's game, but we wish them the best of luck. Tonight they play Rumson Fairhaven
At home. Yep.
So that'll be a great game.
Yeah.
I'll be missing
Is that being
it.
streamed by any chance? Is that game being streamed?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It'll probably be streamed someplace.
You need some love for the girls. They're in the same.
Well, that's
same
my
championship.
my
There
next
you go.
point, right? You have the girls coming up. By the way, Coach Lisa Kokota, 350th win the other day.
Wow.
She's unbelievable. She just, her and Matt Kokota and Justin Thompson just coached Jack and their mid-mama team. They're unbelievable.
Oh, they're best.
I couldn't tell you how much he learned. But she reached her 350th career win. Congratulations, Coach Kokota. The team just beat Spotswood 54-34.
Wow.
They're
Yeah.
playing right now.
They're playing right now against
the score?
Rumson Fairhaven. Do we know the score?
No, they just
Okay.
started 7 minutes ago.
Okay. So by the time this airs, we'll have results, but we really hope that they win tonight as well. Both teams are unbelievable. Manasquan Wrestling had a really good season. And what I can tell you is that program is continuing to build. There's been so much interest now that we have the field house. Kids are coming out in droves and practicing, and they have a lot of really good coaches, and these kids are pretty damn good.
And props to Shelley. I mean, he's done a lot with that. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then ice hockey. We have a Manasquan Point Beach co-op team that reached the NJSIAA South. They did lose to Robbinsville Allentown on Monday night, so they are done, but they had a really good season, so I think that's worth mentioning.
Oh, man, that's great. Thanks for the rundown on that case. And, yeah, there's of course, everything that's going to wrap up, and we've got baseball and Manasquan lacrosse, and both of those teams, as I said, punch above their weight for sure. And then I remember a couple of years ago, the lacrosse team was on a pretty hot run. Baseball is always, perennially a great team. It's you mentioned pride. You're proud of this, right? Like that big blue.
So proud.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of parades in our future.
Indeed.
That's so cool.
All right, Mike, any final thoughts on your side?
No, but I do have to ask a question for you real quick here. When you were working at Gigi's, so I have 2 guys who work for me, the Cacaval brothers, and they were telling me you had a nickname there that has roots in a funny story. Are we allowed to share that here?
Yeah, we could share it. So the nickname is Valdez, after the famous Exxon Valdez, right? And shortly after that happened, I happened to be, they called us gophers, go for this, go for that. I was working in the back, and it was, I think, my first summer there, like July 4th weekend. And if you remember, they used to have the Crystal Light machines where you'd get a big 2-gallon jug of iced tea or lemonade or fruit punch, and you'd bring it out there and you pour it in, and then they can serve drinks from there. And back in the walk-in cooler, we had stacks of these things pre-made for the lunch rush. So they needed iced tea or lemonade. So I went back there, and the first one I opened up was fruit punch. I put it to the side. Second one was fruit punch. I put it to the side. Third one was a fruit punch. I stacked them all up behind me. And, for those of you who don't know, the Crystal Light fruit punch, it stains on contact. Right? I don't know what's in that stuff, but it stains on contact. So if you spill it, there's a red mark, right? So I stacked these 3 5-gallon or 2-gallon buckets up behind me. I turn around and I go to open another one, and all of a sudden I see this tidal wave of red come between my legs. Yes, it was like The Shining, right? So it comes between my legs, and let's say I was 16. I was probably younger than that, right? And I opened the door, and my boss at the time, I love him. He's a great man, but he's huge and very, very intimidating. And I opened the door, and he was right there. And I just shut the door. I didn't know what to do. So I hit in the walk-in, and the lady who ran the deli's like, I could hear her. I'm just sitting there. I'm sitting on a chair in about 2 inches of fruit punch. And I hear the lady she walked in the back, and she's like, what's the red stuff coming out of the walk-in? And this big, huge guy opened the door, and he was like, what the?
And to this day, Brian will be walking down the boardwalk, and Matty R will say, Valdez. It
got so bad that, people had no idea what my real name was. And
that's great.
When I went on vacation, they would tell people that I went home to see my family in Mexico. And, when I was young, I was working at Gigi's, so I was super pale. Like, I did not look anything from
the knees down, you were.
Like, and they were like, yeah, he's in Mexico visiting his family, Valdez. And
oh, my God.
I had no idea.
That's great.
So, yeah, that is my...
So let's bring that back. If anyone sees Brian walking around town, it's Valdez.
It's Valdez. I will answer. 100% I will answer.
All right. Well, Brian, took way too long to get you on here. You're always going to be welcome back. Oh,
I'm still afraid I'm going to get bumped at the last minute.
All right. We'll save the fence talk for the next
I was going to say, we almost made it out without the fence.
Do I hit the button, or do we have a little...
What do you want to ask?
Fuck it. All right. Tell me about fences.
I do not like fences.
I do not like fences. Let's say this, right? Well,
let's bring up what fence we're talking about.
I was going to say, we're going to do the fence thing.
Any fence, because I'll say this, right? As part of so Mike runs this Citizens Action Committee, right? And Citizens Advisory Committee. And one of the anonymous feedbacks was 2 years ago, I don't know if you remember, it was, there's too much pavers and concrete. That wasn't me. But I was like, man, this guy's right. Like, there's too much. This town keeps paving stuff, which, by the way, I couldn't unmute myself fast enough when you said parking lot the other night, and I almost crashed. I was on the Parkway. There's too much pavement. There's too many fences. There's too many signs. You close your eyes on the beach and you walk 20 yards, you're going to run into a sign on the beach. Too much. So, you want to state your case, or, that they want to...
I don't have, the opposite case to that. Just to be clear. Because I agree with you, and so does a lot of the council. So, but there's other practical. I mean, look, we talk about this a lot. We live really close together, so there's certain things that we have to do that you wouldn't do if you lived somewhere else, if you had more space. So, when you talk about a fence around a park or playground, so we didn't want to fence in all of Winterstella Park. We're redoing that playground. Everybody wants some sort of a barrier along those two things, and so what we're trying to do is match it with some plantings,
raised crosswalk.
Well, and a raised crosswalk would be great there. I would love that. But my point is, so we're not going to fence it in all the way around, but we're going to do part of it. So, that I think is where we end up in most cases here in this town. Is I don't think there's no one really making a pro fence argument exactly. It's more of a pro safety.
I don't know, man. I got a lot of pushback from that. I don't think I.
Well, no. In that case, you're talking about Public Works.
We're talking about public.
So, if you're talking about Public Works, the people advocating for that was Public Works. That's what I'm saying. There's no one in the public though that is advocating.
Let's roll
for
back and give the 30,000.
Yeah. So Brian and I are basically neighbors, right? He lives on New Rumson. I live on Manitou, right near the recycling center, whatever, and the water treatment plant. There is now a fence surrounding the walkway and the entire the building there, right? There used to be a field there. Brian and I would play wiffle ball with the kids there when they were growing up. And it was one of the few areas we had that we could do this. And
I will say this, that field, before they put a fence right down the middle of it, was the second largest field, only to Mallard Park in this town. That was the second largest open space you had, and you ran a fence right down the middle of it.
And for years, the DPW...
It's not down the middle.
A third of it.
So, I mean, for years, if you guys aren't familiar, go look it up on Google Maps. We're talking about, there's a little cut through between South Street and, what was that, Manitou? Well, whatever Manitou connects. Iroquois. Where the water treatment place is. And I used to walk my old dog, my new dog. He goes right outside, doesn't want to walk at all. Different between an American and an English lab. But that was a great spot. And there was no fence there. But I understand that it is a water treatment facility. And there are DHS reasons that you might want to protect said facility. But yeah, fine, put a fence around the facility, not in the middle of the field. That was an open space. And so I'm very sympathetic to Brian's point here. Why?
And that was a huge fight. Ultimately, council caved. And I got to say this. One of my favorite council members and this may shock everybody, is Brian Holly. Because if you argue with him long enough, he will see the other side.
He does.
Always. Every other council member,
Once
once they decide something, that's it.
Brian's movable.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that in a bad way about any of the other council members, but he's the only one that I've ever said, okay, let's take a step back and look at this. And I've had a lot of arguments with him, and I don't think he's sending me a Christmas card anytime soon, but he will, if you argue long enough, he will step back. And he was the one that said, all right, this fence thing, we need to review it. Yeah. And there were certain aspects of that fence, you didn't have to go all the way along on that other road. You could have pushed it back so that way they weren't looking at a big fence. It didn't look like a prison yard. And he was the one that stepped in and said, all right, we'll review.
Yeah. Mike, what's your...
Well, no, that's it. I mean, that was one of the first things that happened after I was elected mayor, which I'm gonna give you guys the cop out, but it also happens to be true. Is as the mayor, I don't really, to Brian's point, that those decisions are made by the council. So I was brought in to try and help broker a solution, and Brian was helpful. Both Brian Burgess and Brian Holly were helpful in getting together and making that work. So that was my role in this, and that's why I was saying I don't have the the opposite argument, because I was fine with it, but the staff was making their arguments and the public was making their arguments. And so normally in a situation that's like a park or a playground, the staff can issue their opinions, but that doesn't usually rule the day. But in this case, because it was an active water treatment facility and a public work facility, there was people who on the council were willing to listen to that argument. And so was I, to be honest. But in the end, I think that was the tension that was at play there, was just the fact that it was a facility. And because I agree with you, Brian, and I actually think, I really feel like everybody agrees with you. They just felt like the question was about this one property. And I agree with you. They could have done a better job laying out the fence too. And I've said that all to the guys there and to the public works guys too. So I think in the end we agree, but what really went down there, if we're being honest, I think was a failure of process in government. It had to do with me transitioning. There was a lot of transition the months prior, and there was no public notice. And so I've always said that the things that are the biggest issues are the things where people didn't have the time to weigh in ahead of time. And this was another example. They saw the fence going in and they're like, what the hell?
I mean, you have to think about it from if that is all the same property, what do you do with your property? You put a fence around it, not thinking about the fact that this is actually a public, an open space.
Don't defend them.
I'm not. I'm just plausible.
You're defending the process, right? How it got messed up. And I think that's the point. You're not defending it. No. You're explaining how it got messed up, and I agree with that. I think that's right. And that's the original sin. That's where I say, so many times, and that's where I've unwound in government and why we focus so hard on this boring process stuff most of the time. But Stockton Lake, Wintersell Park, and the other one that we're doing right now, we actually pushed those projects back because they forgot to check the box of meeting with the neighbors. And I was like, guys, you're never going to learn, meaning the staff. And they don't mean to do it. They're just busy and they don't mean to do it. But I'm like, guys, this has to be a priority, because the only knock that I can't ever knock down is I didn't know soon enough. Because there's no excuse for that. Right. Everything else, if you want a fence, you don't want a fence, you can have those arguments. But the thing that gets people riled up is when they didn't know about it, they didn't have an opportunity to comment. And in this case, it could have been any worse. They're literally putting the fence posts in, and no one told anybody. So that was what was wrong there.
Out of curiosity, Mike, and you may or may not know the answer, were they surprised that people cared?
I think this staff. Well, let's put it this way. I think some on the staff, the engineering team was surprised. So this is how this works, right? The staff put in the request. I would be surprised if they were surprised. But they put the request in through the engineering team, which is how this stuff works. It's not sneaky or anything. That's just what they do. And the engineering team never brought it up with the mayor and council because they didn't think it was going to be a big deal, because any other facility they've worked on, fence is just part of the equation. So that's how it happened. Again, not an excuse, but that's how it got as far along as getting into the ground, was because normally when there's controversial issues, someone kind of points that out to the members of council or the mayor. And in this case, and again, it's not an excuse, but offense is just a line on a drawing. Yeah. So like when we're looking at drawings and no one pointed it out, there's so many lines on those drawings. So that is how that happened. But yeah.
Cool. All right.
All right. Well, I'm glad we covered the fence.
Yeah. March 9th, Festivus. Any other grievances to air before we before we close out? Anything else? We can always bring Brian back for like airing your grievances episode.
Yeah. Is this like Festivus?
Yeah.
I love it.
On to the feats of strength.
Yes. No, thank you guys very much for having me. I had a blast. Long time coming.
Yeah.
But
I'm
glad you had me.
Yeah, for folks that weren't read in, I wanted Brian on this from the very, very beginning, and it just became kind of a running joke to be like, oh, we got to bump you. We've got
I was the first person invited, allegedly.
You are.
And it's 2 years later, and they're like...
Didn't help that we took 5 months off.
That's true. That's true. All right, well, Brian, thank you so much. All right, everybody have a great week. We'll see you next Monday.
Nice.